climate if you're lucky. So thanks so much everyone for joining. My name is Emerson Marine. I am the Continuing Education Manager at Longwood Gardens. And we're so excited that you are joining us this evening and for a few more evenings moving forward for Kitchen Garden Design. We are super excited to be offering this program. It is part of the Landscape Design Certificate of Merit, so it is considered an elective for that, although you don't have to be in the Certificate of Merit to be taking this class. Maybe you're just interested in kitchen garden design. So excited that you're joining us. So I am not the main event for the evening. That will be Ellen Ogden, who I will introduce in just a minute. But I am joining just to give a little bit of a welcome and an orientation to our online learning classroom. So I'd love to see by show of hands if anyone has taken an online continuing education class with us before. Excellent. Well, welcome back if you are a returning student, and welcome if you are a brand new student. Since most of us, it appears, have taken an online class with us before, I won't go too in depth, but I think it's a nice reminder of how to use the online learning classroom, where to find resources, etc. So I am going to share my screen so that you can take a look. Everyone should be seeing this now. Excellent. So just to give you an idea of where to find the online learning classroom from the Longwood Gardens website, let me just resize this. I'm on my laptop today, so it's a little smaller. So if you are looking for where to access the online learning classroom, the best place is to go to longwoodgardens.org. And if you hover over education, it will open up this menu and you can select online learning and it will take you right to the login. Your login information will be different than mine, but that's exactly where you would access it as well. When you log in, depending on if you have enrolled in more than one online learning class with us before, you'll have various tiles for the different classes. You're going to want to select Kitchen Garden Design. So it will look like this for you. And just to give you a brief overview of where to start, where to find certain things, I would suggest for everyone to get started with the Getting Started module. So this will really just be an overview of the classroom, where to find things. You can tab through the various pages with these arrows here. Just a little bit of information on how to use Brightspace, which is the platform that hosts this class. Additionally, there's a course introduction to give you a little bit of an idea of what you're going to be covering, what your learning objectives are, so what you'll all get to walk away with by the end of this class. A little bit of information on Ellen. I'll let you all read that in more depth later. This is your syllabus. So I would suggest you download it. Anything that is a resource that you can download will have this little download button. This will tell you exactly what to expect for the whole course. So in terms of what materials would be useful, technical support, the certificate information, as well as the course objectives, due dates, important policies. So this will be a really good resource for you to make sure you have access to moving forward. If you need to be reminded of where to find the Zoom information, that will also stay in this Getting Started module. It will tell you exactly what dates we'll be meeting, what time, and it will include the link there as well. So if you happen to lose your link, you can always go back to this page. I do know that there is this class introductions discussion tab. So it looks like some of us have put in some information about yourselves, which is great. A little bit of information on that certificate of merit in landscape design. So hopefully, if you're not already pursuing that, maybe this class will inspire you to take some additional courses to earn that certificate of merit in landscape design. And just some more information about eligibility, tracking, etc. So that is the general overview, but I do want to also point out a couple other features. So if you are on a different page here and you want to get back to the main page, I would suggest you click on the title of the class. That's the best way to return to this home screen. I know Ellen wanted me to point out where you will submit your final assignment. So you'll only have one assignment for this class, I believe. So this will be under the assignments tab. So you can just click on the assignment and it will give you a place to upload a file. So if you have any issues, though, you can always reach out to us. The support tab here is actually support for the Brightspace D2L, so the platform. So if you have technical issues, you can find support for those tech issues here. But if you have class-specific questions or generally continuing education at Longwood questions, you can email us at continuingeducation@longwoodgardens.org. That's the best place to find us. Before I kind of go dark for a little bit, I would love to know, does anyone have any questions about the platform? Okay, that's great. Again, if anything comes up, oh yeah, sure, Kathy. I think you are muted.
What I was trying to do early, because I mean, I missed your introduction for 2 classes I took already. So I felt lost for quite a bit of the course, but I couldn't find where you would find the syllabus, like, you know, like the lecture notes. I was looking for that because some of the classes I had, they had tons of PowerPoint presentations that you kind of had to download ahead of time, and I couldn't find that when I was looking this time.
Sure, that's a really great question. So if I don't know that there's going to be lecture notes for this class, but I do think there is. Ellen, you can let me know. Are they able to download their PowerPoint, like your PowerPoint presentations?
Yes, to answer the question, this is my first class teaching at Longwood, so I'm sort of learning this platform at the same time, and any suggestions like that are really helpful. And it didn't even occur to me, but I do think that I would be able to upload the PDF of the PowerPoint.
Oh, that's perfect, because I'm great at writing notes down. I don't have the best of memory. So
no, that's fine. I think that's fine. And of course, this is being recorded as well.
Yes. Yeah,
but
so to access the recordings, that will also be posted in the online classroom. So this tile here for class recordings, all the Zoom recordings will be posted in the online classroom as well. So you can always return to a recording. Good question, though.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Oh, gosh. I just want to say that, gosh, I can't believe I didn't turn my phone off. I just want to say that, yes, as much, I'm going to keep filling this as soon as I can understand how to put things in. I'll keep filling it with material. So just keep loading it on me and I'll keep putting it in as quickly as I can. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
All right, so if you do think of any other questions, you can feel free to drop it in the chat. I'll be on and be happy to answer them. But with that, I would love to introduce your instructor for kitchen garden design. She is an author and an expert in kitchen gardens, Ellen Ogden. You want to take it away?
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm just so thrilled, first of all, to be invited to teach this class, but that so many of you are interested in learning about kitchen garden designs. It's so much fun for me. And I have to admit, even though I've taught this for 20 years, I still get a little nervous. I still get a little bit like, oh my gosh, I hope I share what you want to know. You know, you have varying levels. I was reading through the class notes before class, and some of you have a lot of experience and even have certificates. So you probably know way more than I do. And some of you are just starting out. So I really consider this to be really a group effort. The format of the class will be a series of photos. I'm a very visual instructor. I love for you to look at photos and just be inspired. I'll certainly do a lot of talking along the way. And there will be some breakout sessions where we're going to break into groups of 4. So you have a little module to share ideas, and I'll drop in on each one of you so I can listen. And then I'll ask one of you from the group to come back and tell me what you were talking about. And then this will be 2-hour class, and then we have 30 minutes at the end for you to start working on your designs, to ask me questions, to just hang out if you want to. I have to admit, I think this is kind of an awkward time, 6 to 8:30, but I guess it seems to work for most people. So if you need to get up and get something to eat, go right ahead. But I do have to make a little change in that there will be assignments. And I think you probably, if you downloaded the homework page after every class, of which there are 5, there are 2 optional assignments, which you can do on your own, but then there's one that I would like to see you post. And so I think that will go into the assignments page, and I'd love to see it. And that will give me an idea of some of your progress and some of the obstacles, and, just to make sure that we're following along. So there will actually be 5 assignments, and lecture notes I'll add. And yeah, so I want to just start off by saying I'm going to switch over to screen share and do some pictures. Maybe I should do that now. How do I do that? Screen share. Let me see. Okay, I think I can do that. I'm going to take myself off of here. You can see my screen, right? And then we're going to go right into enter full screen. Yeah, no, wrong one. View.
Yeah, it works.
How's that, everybody? Good? Great.
Got it.
All right, so I'm going to take a deep breath. I have to sometimes remember to slow down, and we have enough time to really get into some of these, into the discussion, into the thoughts. So I'm going to go a little slowly this first class, and it's going to help me gauge how many slides I can fit into this 2 hours without overloading you. The worst thing a presenter can do is give you too many slides, and you leave the class going, oh my God, that was too much. I want to give you just enough to inspire you, just enough to trigger some cool ideas, just enough to guide you into creating a design. And so, again, give me feedback at the end or during or whatever. But this first class is really an overview. I know we all want to get into design and talk about seeds and plants, but really I want to give you the big picture, small picture concept. And this is really setting the foundation. Some of you maybe already have a garden, some of you are just starting out. So this is really an opportunity to think about your landscape as a whole and how it fits together. I think so often gardeners get very eager to get going, and they put a garden in here and then they put a garden in there, and then suddenly there's too much to do, or they don't really fit together, and then you go, this isn't working right. I want you to start by thinking about the land and what the land means to you, and where you want to be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. A garden isn't just something you're going to put in and then leave, hopefully. It's really a commitment. It's a commitment in terms of your time. It's a commitment to the land. It's, it's a connection to the food you're growing. And honestly, that's what I love most about having a food garden, is that what you eat feeds you. And so you're really making that huge connection. And, a lot of people don't get that, but it's kind of this wonderful concept that I truly believe constitutes good health, especially if you're organic gardening, which of course you all are. So the other concept I really wanted to stress is, what's your style? Because we all start with the same 3 things: seeds, plants, and soil, and yet each of our gardens are completely different. And so it's going to be your big vision of how you come up with what you want to do. And there's absolutely no right or wrong. It's just kind of figuring out what thrills you, what excites you, how does it make you feel when you go into that space. And so this first class is really about getting excited and just triggering some of that creativity inside. And that's why I call this the art of growing food, because it's not just setting up soil and putting seeds in the ground. We're going to talk about the elements that create style and create this space that is more than just a place to grow food. Lots of big concepts, but I promise you it will kind of seep into your psyche. And really what I'm hoping you'll do in this 5 weeks is immerse yourself in the art of growing food. Find inspiration everywhere. Read a lot, look a lot, think about it, dream about it. You know, it's not just about drawing something, it's really about taking it in. And so, you know, we only have 5 weeks. That's not very long, but I think by the end of this, you're going to be very excited to get that garden in the ground. So this class is really about setting up the foundation. So the very first class, we're going to talk about big picture, small picture. And this is really taking your overall landscape and then figuring out where your garden is going to go. And I know from reading a little bit about the introductions, and some of you posted introductions, and I hope the rest of you will also go into that Longwood Garden class site and just give me a little bit of information about where you're coming from. But big picture, small picture is really about, you know, seeing everything as a whole. So class 1, establishing your style. In this class, we're going to look at an overview of your yard. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get this little window that zooms pictures. So now I don't see any of you. So if, you know, but I hope you can see me. In this class, we'll look at an overview of your yard. And we're going to explore ways to connect to the land and tap into your creativity. We're going to talk about what is a kitchen garden, how is it different than a vegetable garden, a victory garden? Where do you find inspiration? Some of you may feel like you're not creative, but I tell you, everybody who gardens is an artist. And how do you set up that vision? We're going to do some sort of meditative work on that. And then starting to draw your landscape and then get into the zone and immerse yourself in your landscape. So I'd like to start with a quote by Mary Reynolds, and she has a book called The Garden Awakening. And I was introduced to Mary's work. I believe she's English. There was actually a movie that was written about her life, and she entered the Chelsea Garden Show with the most unusual landscape design. That was, I think it was a big woman line, you know, sideways in the earth, and everything was very natural and native. And I really feel that she was the one who started this whole wonderful new concept called rewilding that we're exploring with native plants. But her book, Garden Awakening, was really pivotal to my thinking about gardening. And her quote goes like this. I'm going to read, there's not going to be too much writing in this PowerPoint. I don't like to put a lot of words in PowerPoints, but this one I just thought you might like to read along with me. We are only brief guardians of these portions of land we call our gardens. We do not and cannot truly own them. Our bodies are made of the earth and return to it eventually, but the land will always remain alive. Everything we need to survive and all that nourishes us comes from the earth, its soil, the atmosphere, the sun, and the stars beyond. We are simply walking pieces of the earth. We are drawn to certain locations where the land resonates with us and pulls us towards it. People can spend their entire lives looking for the places where they belong, places where they feel at home, where they fit and can comfortably set down roots. We are simply a reflection of the land beneath us, and nature is always waiting for us to return home. The land connects us in ways we don't always understand, and each of us is attracted to a different space, reflecting our personalities. Every landscape also has its own character that helps shape the culture of the people who live there. So for me, that's very profound, and that's kind of my philosophy that I'm going to be sharing with you. So let's go with it. So let's start with that question, what is a kitchen garden? Well, when I wrote my first book back in 2003, I sent my proposal into my agent it's called The Complete Kitchen Garden. And she thought a kitchen garden was something that you actually grew in the kitchen. Well, we all know now, 20 years later, that that's not what a kitchen garden is. A kitchen garden is really a smaller, small, intimate garden space that's designed to grow the herbs and the greens and really a lot of the foods that you can't get at the market. It's not designed to have corn and squash, but you can have tomatoes. You can actually grow anything you want. But my kitchen garden is very small and intimate because honestly, I only have a limited amount of time, but I love to eat. So I'm pretty selective about what I grow in my garden. This might be considered a kitchen garden, but to me, this is more of the victory garden style with the long straight rows. And look at all that lettuce. I think this gardener is going to be a little overwhelmed with lettuce by the time that actually comes in. But it's taking a space like this, but redesigning it in a way that makes it a little bit more intimate and personal and honestly, more enjoyable. So, if this is what your garden looks like, great. We're gonna do some work on that. A kitchen garden is a sanctuary for people and nature. And while this garden that I'm showing has mostly flowers, it's a wonderful way to integrate flowers and vegetables and herbs together in the same space. And so often we keep our gardens separate. We have the flower garden and we have the vegetable garden, but honestly, those pollinators want to go to both the flowers and the vegetables. So I really encourage integrating both in the same space. And a kitchen garden combines productivity with design on a small, intimate scale. And this is a one picture of my garden. I've been gardening at this location for 20 years, and every year my garden is a little different. And some years it's not very good, and some years it's better. But you can see that I only have 4 tiny little beds that are about 9 square feet each, and I pack a lot into that space because I do a lot of layering of the plants, and we're going to be talking about that in one of the lessons. But it doesn't have to be a big space. You can pack a lot in a small space if you have a good design. I love Monticello. I love that big garden, and I think it's sort of humorous that Jefferson called it his kitchen garden because it really is, it's way bigger than a kitchen garden. But look at how this garden has some wonderful features like those pole beans that give the garden drama. And we're going to be talking about elements of design that you can put in your garden that really give it a more artful touch, but also give it a more personal touch. And so if any of you have been to Monticello, you know this wonderful little building here, which is really just a place for him to sit and enjoy and look into the garden. And we're going to be talking about that too. So creating comfort in your garden is essential to a successful kitchen garden. A kitchen garden invites pollinators and rewilding through thoughtful diversity of plants. We're losing so many of our plants because we're kind of narrowing down what the seed catalogs offer us. And we're going to be talking about this in lesson 3, seeds and plants, and what it means to be a seed saver and what it means to save heirloom seeds and the culture around seeds. So we'll be saving that, but really thinking about things you can grow that you can't buy in the store that will be fabulous for cooking and bringing into the kitchen. And so you're taking this class because you're interested in a well-designed kitchen garden to transform an ordinary garden. And this is certainly a nice enough garden. It has the gate and the fence and the mulch paths and the Buddha under the apple tree. And this is my neighbor Carl's garden. And it's a very suitable garden. But where I want to take you to today with some of these images is a garden that looks like this. Now, you may say that's kind of wild and messy, but that's wonderful because wild and messy has intrigue and drama, and it draws you into that space. And I do agree that some of the clematis growing on there could be done away with. But look at how this garden has a focal point with the twig trellis and the archways that create the portal into that garden. And then there's a lot of different plants that have texture and the leek leeks and the beans and the lemon marigolds. And there's so much going on in this garden. So this is really where I want to take you to be thinking about a creative way to design your kitchen garden. So when I talk about big picture, I want you to think of the kitchen garden as integral to the whole landscape. This is a wonderful garden. This belongs to Kathy La Liberté, who lives up in Heinsberg, Vermont. And pretty much all of the pictures I show you are New England gardens. They're going to be very few that are, fancy European potager style, because really this is what we all are. We're home gardeners. It's never going to be perfect. It's always going to be the best we can do. But really, getting out and visiting other people's gardens and gathering ideas is really the best way to get to be a knowledgeable gardener. And I've been gardening now for 25 years, and I still feel like I'm very humbled by what I don't know. And so there's always so much to learn. And I love the way Kathy has put her greenhouse right in the center of that garden. And then notice how she's integrating the vegetables and the flowers together. So she thinks about her whole landscape and how everything works together. And then we're going to be looking at the small picture, the specific kitchen garden design that you want to create within that whole landscape and how it's going to fit into that space. So the 6 steps to successful design that we're going to cover in this class start with the site. We're going to pick a kitchen garden site with a good southern exposure, and then consider all the views both inside and outside the house. And then picture in your mind how a garden could fit into your landscape and the natural routine of your day. So this is what we're going to be more or less talking about in this class. And this chart is something you can download on that class site from Longwood. But let's start with the history of kitchen gardens. Like, who did the first kitchen garden? How do we know about kitchen gardens, and why do we care? Well, we're very lucky to live in this age where we don't have to worry about growing food, but we still want to. It's a basic yearning to want to be able to grow at least a little bit of our own food, maybe in just a pot outside the kitchen door, or maybe a larger garden. But really, it goes back to when kitchen gardens were a necessity. Look, think of Adam and Eve. That was the original kitchen garden, but the first documented kitchen gardens were from the Paradise Gardens in Islam in the 1500 BCE. And of course, they don't look exactly like this, but one of the beauties of the Paradise Gardens was that they involved nature. They were all about beauty and music and love, and integrated growing food with their life and life and death and health. And many of those wonderful gardens still are based, the Islamic design are based on the 4 squares, which represent the 4 cardinal directions: east, west, north, and south. And often they would be planted with seeds that would come back from people who traveled out into the greater world and would bring back seeds and plants. So trading seeds and plants all over the world has been going on for a very long time. And the water feature that's often in Islamic gardens represents the 4 sacred liquids of life: honey, wine, water, and milk. And so there's a lot of symbolism in those early gardens. And because, of course, the success of their gardens was really going to determine their life and existence. So I love picturing those early beautiful gardens. Then fast forward to the medieval kitchen gardens during the 1,000 years between 500 and 1500s. And, there's not a lot of them left, but we know that it was a time that was kind of dark. And many of the kitchen gardens were, the beautiful kitchen gardens were set up in the monasteries, and the nuns and the monks would tend to them, and they would grow healing herbs, and they grew orchards, and they were a place of refuge, and they were a place where animals were kept. And many of the medieval kitchen gardens were also based on that 4 square grid, if you look at the templates of some of those gardens. And so there was a certain orderliness that was like godliness when looking at that 4 square grid during the medieval times. And then fast forward to the Renaissance kitchen gardens in France at the Chateau de Villandry and the Chateau de Versailles, and the 4 square patterns continued. Now, 4 square, look at all the variations on it. It's not just squares. These are red and green cabbages, by the way, with, I think, a cross section of some kind of a flower. So it's bringing the pollinators into the garden, but look at all the variations in those gardens. And I really became very curious about that 4 square notion in the kitchen gardens, and how they then continued in Colonial Williamsburg. If you have been to Colonial Williamsburg, you see all of their kitchen gardens are also based on that 4 square, with the mulberry tree in the center as the focal point. And most of the kitchen gardens, they didn't grow all of their crops. Most of the larger crops that they would use for eating during the winter were grown out in the farmlands beyond the actual Colonial Williamsburg enclave. But so many of these gardens were both ornamental and productive. And I think this is early spring. They're being mulched with pine needles, but you can imagine how they would be flourishing with greens and herbs during the middle of the summer. And then around the outside edges, there would be flowers and ornaments. So the art of the 4 square garden is also called a parterre garden. And another picture of Colonial Williamsburg on the right-hand side. And notice how you can take that larger scale and bring it into a very intimate styled kitchen garden, again, with the beautiful white benches and enclosed at the boxwood, and having that lovely space that you walk into and you can sit down and enjoy. So this is a concept I'm going to bring up quite a bit, because as an organic gardener, it fits very nicely into the soil rotation to build healthy soil, called a crop rotation. And this has been going on for centuries, the crop rotation, where you're growing all of the legumes in one bed. The legumes are setting nitrogen into the soil and feeding the soil, so that when the leafy greens then move into where the legumes have been, the leafy greens naturally love nitrogen, so they'll thrive, and the legumes will go into where the root crops have been, and the root crops have been taking up all the nitrogen from the soil, and the soil will be rebuilding. And so designing a garden that can use this organic crop rotation is really beneficial for the plants and for the soil. And again, we'll talk more about that in lesson, I think it's lesson 4, when we talk about soil and crop rotation. But I wanted to just insert that as we're looking at the overall design. So what I'm hoping you do today is really create a vision for your kitchen garden, and think big and start small. And I start with this beautiful picture of a garden that was designed by Rosemary Veary, and I believe it's somewhere in Kentucky. But when I first started gardening, I really didn't know how to design kitchen gardens, and I just started looking at picture, and I saw this photo and I went, wow, there's a lot of things here that I can learn. And this is kind of how I built my 6 steps to the elements of style. The first one is that white bench. Notice your eye goes directly to that white bench at the far end. And that's called a focal point. Creating a focal point in your garden leads you into that space. If it didn't have that bench, you might not even want to walk into that long alley. And notice the wonderful geometric squares around the trees, how that sets up a grid-like feel. I'm not sure why the trees on the right aren't doing as well as the ones on the left, but never mind, maybe they haven't been planted yet. And then notice in the front, the tutors, those white tutors on the left-hand side, how that adds an element of height and drama to the garden. And so often we put in a trellis for things to grow on, but these are just merely there for decoration. And it was just a reminder to me that we can decorate our gardens. Not everything has to be 100% practical. And then again, the little garden here I'm going to see if my pointer works for you. This little garden here, it's a little boxy garden, and it could just be, planted with straight rows, the way that garden that we saw in earlier photos could be. But instead, Rosemary decided to break that into a triangular pattern with a crosshatch of path. And then surrounded each section with a little low growing boxwood or germander, and then filling in the space. And again, just taking the same little shape and playing with it is how she probably came up with that. And we're going to be doing that in one of our exercises. So finding gardens, you know, as I might have mentioned in some of the initial paper that was, you know, posted, is to come up with a vision board, come up with some ideas, start ripping out magazine pictures or tagging books, and start coming up with some designs, and then trying to figure out what it is that you love about that design that you can incorporate into your own. Because I really believe that artful design turns work into play. And I hear so many people say, oh, I don't grow food, it's so much work. I love my flowers though. And so I guess my mission in life is to get more people to grow a food garden, because I really feel it truly matters in terms of just having the skill to be able to grow your own food. And when you make it fun and you make it beautiful, it can turn work into play. Instead of saying, I'm going out to work in the garden, you can say, I'm going out to play in the garden, and just think how much lighter that makes you feel and how much more fun you can have. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute, and we're going to do our first breakout session. I'm going to see if I can do this with Emerson's help. And I want you to tell me about yourself. I want you to tell your group. We're going to be breaking into groups of 4. I want you to tell your group 3 things you love about your garden. I want you to share your biggest challenge. And I want you to share a vision for your new kitchen garden. And so, you know, start writing these things down. I'm going to post this actually in I think it's the comments section. It's going to post on a note, so you'll all get this. So if you don't have this right in front of you, you can look at it in your group, and, you know, just take 5 minutes now and jot down those things. And then we're going to take a breakout session for about 5 minutes, and I'm going to drop in on each one of you, and then maybe you'll be able to share that with me. How do I get out of this now? Okay. How are we doing? I can stop screen share, right? So, good so far? I got this. It's been a while since I've done Zoom.
Yes.
I am going to, so write those things down, and I am going to see about how to, are you with me, Emerson, or do I need to?
I am. Yep. I am ready to open the rooms whenever you are. And you said you would like the rooms to be 5 minutes. Is that
I
correct?
think so. And how do I post those questions? Do I put that into the reactions?
So if you open the chat, so it might be, you might have to hit the 3 dots that says more, and you can open your chat.
There we go. Do we want to stop recording for a minute, or are we going to keep this going?
We can keep it going, and then we can edit it later.
Okay, so let me see if I can drop this message into, okay, so then I send it out to everybody. There, all right, we're on.
Perfect.
Okay,
Great.
so how are you going to do it? We're going to do 1, 2, 3, or are you just going to just?
I'll open it. I'll give everyone a second to grab that picture, and I'm opening rooms now.
Great, good. I look forward to meeting you in your rooms.
How do you get into the picture? Oh, you just joined.
It automatically drops you in, right, Emerson? It's been a while.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Might have to hit join, but. And Lindsay, I'm going to assign you to a room because I think you might have joined a little.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
After. No, you're fine. I'm going to add you to room number 1.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
And then remind me, Emerson, how I get into the rooms.
Sure. So first I want to make sure, okay, Peter's good. So the way to get into the room, if you go to the breakout button, so it'll say breakout rooms, and you can hit that.
Thank you.
On your ribbon at the bottom.
Oh,
got
it. Perfect.
And
Perfect.
then for each room, it says join, so you can drop into any of the rooms. I
Okay.
do have it so that they're going to close automatically after 5 minutes. They'll come back. I
Okay.
think they have like 60 seconds to like come back. So you have about 3.5 minutes left.
Oh no, oh no.
But I
That's
can
not
extend
fun.
it. I can always extend it, I think.
I think we may have to, because I'll probably spend a little bit. Yeah. 5 minutes isn't very much, is it?
That's okay. I can always see.
Yeah, give it an extra 5 minutes, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to change it at this point, but
All
I
right.
can always reopen it
All right.
and send them. Hi, Ellen. Are we thinking we want to reopen the rooms with a little more time? I think you're muted.
Doesn't. It wasn't nearly enough time. I'm not sure what I was thinking, but I don't know if we want to go back in or maybe just share as a group quickly. I know in the group that I was sitting in on the big challenges were deer, and sun. Deer and sun were the two big things in space. Does anybody else want to volunteer? Is everybody automatically muted, or can we just share as a group what some of the, how do I do this? I think I can do this. What some challenges you are facing with your garden and some of your visions? Maybe we do that as a big group, and then we go back, and next time we'll build more time.
Like slope and soil were some of our issues too. And how do you terrace it? And the area that has the best sun, how do you terrace it and make that a functional kitchen garden?
Yeah.
We talk about shade and we talk about irrigation if you travel.
Irrigation?
Yeah, if you travel, but when you're traveling, how you irrigate your garden.
Boy, these are good. This is good for me to know. Anybody else want to share anything?
Yeah, I have moved to mostly raised beds since I'm on a smaller property than I was before, and finding good soil the last 2 years has been really difficult. Everything's coming in looking like mulch.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a big
It's
problem.
horrible. Yeah.
Big problem. It's sort of sludgy stuff, isn't it? I know I'm getting that too from up here. I mean, I don't buy soil, but I look at it. Oof.
And then coming from a couple different backgrounds too, I think that was also like a theme in our group. We have like people who are renting, people who are like designing for clients, people who are like, rethinking their own backyard. So like a couple different angles was part of it.
This is very helpful for me to hear. Does anybody else want to share some thoughts?
I have many, many rabbits.
Oh.
A lot of rabbits.
I forgot to add that one. Rabbits and chipmunks and squirrels.
My dogs
you
are
should get
not
a
doing their
couple of
job.
dogs. Get
I
little
have 2
dogs.
dogs. They're not quick enough.
Okay, sorry.
I think Rob said that, Rob was in our group and he said that he likes to have a balance of something that's close where you can just kind of grab it at dinner time versus having to go out to a further spot in your backyard to the bigger garden. So to have like a combo, close garden and further away garden.
I'm not sure I heard that very well. I'm not sure what's wrong with the speaker, maybe, but there was something about having a dual garden, about having a...
Yeah, like having something close by your door, you can kind of grab it while you're cooking, and then having like a larger garden, maybe a little bit more of a distance away from your kitchen.
Interesting. Yeah, that would work. That would work. I have to be honest, I'm not sure I can answer all of these questions because I really want to use this class to specifically work on design. But it's kind of reassuring to know that we all have these issues, and I'll give you my take on it, and individually and also as a group. I mean, in terms of deer and rabbit and stuff, there's not much you can really do about that. We'll talk about fences. It kind of kills me a little bit because I lecture all the time. I do 100 lectures a year or whatever. And I'll talk about design, and every single time somebody will raise their hand and say, what do I do about deer? And so I've tried to address it in my presentation that this is how I handle deer. So I don't get that question, because everybody has that problem and I don't have any great solutions to it. I will say that the sun is kind of an interesting question, because when I do site visits, I often find that the best sun is often in people's driveway. Like, I don't know what it is with construction people, but they seem to put the driveway and the garage exactly where the garden should be because it gets full sun. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's happening to you, and maybe you just have to kind of reorient the garden so that you're growing more in the driveway. Like, forget parking in the driveway, but use that space for your garden in some way. and then kind of give up some of these concepts. Like Kathy, you and I were just starting to talk about, the best space is where the kids play. And, maybe there needs to be a garden that's integrated into that space where the kids play. So I don't know, I'm hoping that we can kind of use our right brain and our left brain to kind of think about solutions rather than problems. So this is good for me to continue this conversation as we go, and we'll address things like soil and irrigation and so on. Yeah, I'm going to keep going if that's okay, but this is really good for me to hear, and I hope we'll keep talking about these issues. But just keep in mind that we're really going to mostly focus about design and concept, but these are all things that maybe will come in time to resolve themselves in some way. So I'm going to keep going with the screen share. If I can.
Do you talk about raised beds at some point?
You bet I do. We do a whole thing on beds. Yeah.
That's a solution.
Could be. I have my own take on raised beds that you may not like, but we'll get there. I don't know. I just thought maybe you might like to know a little bit about my background and what I do. I mean, I was hoping that we had used that sharing session, not so much to talk about our challenges, although I did make that the first question, but I wanted to hear more about you. And so maybe in the next breakout session, I can learn more about you, or we can do some time at the end of class, because I really am curious about how we all come to be gardeners. But I thought I'd just share a little bit about my garden. This is what my garden looked like today. It's snowing here. I think we've got 6 inches. So this is kind of a noontime view of it. And it's very close to the house. It's right snug to the house, but I'm in Vermont. I don't know where most of you are from. I imagine you're around the Pennsylvania, and maybe you're near Longwood, maybe you're further away, but I'm in Vermont, which means we're zone 3-4, which is pretty darn cold most of the time. And I was telling Emerson, I was just bringing firewood into the house right before class, and I seemed to have slipped and hit my forehead right on a piece of wood, and I was bleeding like crazy, and I thought I was going to go to the hospital, but I'm fine. That's where my life. But this is how I feel every spring. I can't stop gardening. It's like right now I'm kind of dormant. It's like, oh, I feel like a plant. I don't really feel like moving very much or growing or doing anything. But once spring comes, there's just no stopping. And I imagine that's exactly how you feel. So it's really good you're taking the class now, because once spring hits, boy, you're going to be off and running. And it's a very exciting passionate time to be outside. But I've not always been a gardener. I was married to a gardener. I actually went to art school and started a little design business and moved to Vermont because that's where my husband was from. And he really wanted to garden and grow vegetables. And I was not from a gardening background, and I was working with fabrics. And I said, I am not going to be a gardener. I don't want to get dirty. It looked like a lot of hard work. And I was pretty happy just being in the kitchen, learning how to cook. And so it was wonderful. We had a little farm stand. And then at the end of the day, I'd be able to take whatever we didn't sell at the farm stand and cook and develop recipes. And we started a little seed catalog called The Cook's Garden, because we started to import seeds from Italy and from France. It's a little bit more of a story that I might share if we had a lot more time, but basically we lived in a very small town in Vermont with a population of year-round population of 1,500. And so even though we were growing these beautiful organic vegetables, we couldn't sell enough to, buy a pair of shoes. It was very, very challenging. And luckily my design business more or less supported us, but it wasn't thriving either. And we had a friend who had gone to Italy, and this is back in 1983, had gone to Italy and purchased a packet of arugula to bring us. And we'd never heard of arugula because we'd never been to Italy. And we thought it was the most amazing green. Like, what is this stuff? It was actually called rucola. It wasn't even known as arugula. And we just thought, wow, what is this? And on the back of the packet, there was an address of a French seed, an Italian seed company. And so my husband said, do you think I could order some seeds from them? And I said, sure, go for it. And so he wrote away to the seed catalog. And back then we didn't have fax machines or computers, and they sent their catalog and he went through it and he sent an order in. He didn't tell me that the minimum order was 200 kilos. So he ordered, all kinds of things from this place. And we had so many seeds when the order came through that we didn't know what to do with it. So we decided to start a seed catalog called the Cook's Garden. Because I was the cook and he was the gardener, and seeds aren't like wine and cheese. They don't get better with age. So we really had to find some customers who wanted to grow some of these Italian vegetables that we had a lot of seeds for. And luckily we got a big hit in the New York Times, and I quit my day job and we both started doing the catalog. But my job as the cook was still not to be a gardener, but I needed to go out into the garden and taste everything. I needed to write about it because we could not afford to do a color catalog the way Burpee does. We really were dependent on the wood graphics by Mary Azarian, which were beautiful, but they weren't specific enough to be able to show you what a mosh looked like, or even what arugula looked like, or really what it tasted like. So my job as the cook was to go out in the garden and taste 150 different kinds of lettuce and salad greens, and then write a description of what they tasted like. And hopefully it was a good enough description that our customers would want to buy these greens, because we had a lot of seeds. And so the catalog kept growing every year, and we kept trying different seed suppliers in France and in Italy and in England. And it was really quite an exciting time, because we were growing Chiriola, chicory, and Claytonia, that beautiful little lily pad looking leaf, which is a very tiny little wild green. And then the troutback lettuce, which you're starting to see more of now in the farmers markets. And that's also known as Forellenschuss, and it's a German heirloom variety. And again, we didn't have photographs like these to be able to share them. So just coming up with words that describe the flavor was my job at the catalog. The trouble I had was with chicory. We grew a lot of beautiful chicories because that's what the Italian seed catalog specialized in. And we had this gorgeous Rosa di Verona, this chicory, which was not easy to grow. It actually doesn't grow looking like that. It comes up looking like a little red cabbage, and then you cut it down, and then you hope and pray that it comes back. And when it comes back, it may look like this, but it really only came back about 60% of the time. But the trouble was I didn't know how to cook it. And all of my cookbooks just basically said you cut it in half and you brush it with olive oil and you put it on the grill and blacken it. And then you put a creamy dressing on it because it's very bitter. And I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to do that to this beautiful chicory. And, that word bitter is something that Americans don't really resonate with. So there was a reason we couldn't sell a lot of chicory back then. So I told my husband I needed to go to cooking school, preferably in Italy. And so I signed up to study with Marcella Hazan. And I don't know if any of you have Marcella's cookbooks, if you love to cook Italian cuisine. She's a great master. She's no longer with us, but she was a great master in sort of the 5-ingredient recipe, and that she really felt that the vegetables or whatever she was cooking really needed to stand out in flavor. So it was exactly the way I love to cook, because I really don't want to spend a lot of time in the kitchen, but we had these beautiful vegetables. But it turned out she really wasn't teaching us about chicory. And when I asked her if I could have some recipes for chicory, she said, why would you want that? Americans don't like bitter greens. And so this wonderful Pontarella was a chicory that we grew a lot of. And I just said, I just need one recipe. And she showed us how you take the stems, and they're hollow stems, and you cut them and slice them and then put them in ice water, and they twirl like lucky bamboo, and you pat it dry, and then you dress it with lemon and garlic, and of course a wonderful Italian olive oil, and it was really the best thing we cooked through the whole class. It was a whole week class in Venice, Italy, and I came back really falling in love with chicory, but I needed to convey that to our customers, how to cook with chicory. But there was somebody else in the class who had told me about a school in Shanagary, Ireland, and it's called the Ballymaloe School of Cookery. And again, they have a 10-week professional program, but they had a week-long recreational class, which is the one that I took. And what I loved about this experience is that this is really when I became a gardener. Because walking into their kitchen garden and their herb garden, this is how it looked. And it opened up all of my senses. Just walking through that wonderful arbor of green was full of birds chirping. And then the smell of the boxwood and the lovage and the thyme and all the herbs in this garden were simply magnificent. And then I'm standing on a little platform looking down into this space. And I realized that beautiful gardens really were not work. They didn't have to be dusty and dirty. They could be really a place that you could enjoy, and also could be very productive. And this is when I came home and decided I wanted to learn how to design kitchen gardens. I've ended up writing 5 books on kitchen gardens. One was a cookbook, but all of my books, these are 2 of my books that are still in print, contain designs and recipes for cooks who love to garden. And the biggest problem I have with them is that they're half designs and half recipes. So the bookstores don't know if they should put them in the garden section or the cooking section. And so they're mostly in the garden section, I believe. And so if you want to look them up, you can probably find them. But gathering ideas, where do we find inspiration? Where do you get these ideas for creating your own gardens? And for me, it was easy because I'd gone to art school. I was a very visual thinker. This is my garden when I had just started out in my new location here in Manchester. And I was able to design that garden fairly easily. It doesn't always look this way, but this is early spring, and I sort of had the idea of how I wanted to set it up, but it doesn't always work out that way. And sometimes when I'm looking for inspiration, I'll go to an art museum. There's a wonderful place here in Massachusetts called Mass MoCA, and there's a whole lot of these fantastic, colorful paintings by Sola Witt. So when I was designing some of the gardens in my most recent book, the New Heirloom Garden, I used that painting by Sola Witt and put it in front of me. And so there's lots of places you can get ideas. And so I always say I get my best ideas from other gardeners. So I do a lot of visiting other gardens. There's a wonderful organization called the Garden Conservancy, and they have open days tours where you can go and see a lot of private gardens. So I encourage you to look that up. Garden books, I have a huge bookcase of gardening books. I don't read them necessarily, but I do look at the pictures. And one of my favorites is the Chanticleer Gardens, which is down near Longwood, as you probably know, and they have a wonderful book called The Art of Gardening. I love visiting botanical gardens. Longwood Gardens is one of my favorites. This is from the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens. This summer, I went to visit them. And one of the features of that garden, which is really most spectacular, is they have trolls. They have 5 of these gorgeous wooden trolls. And I really encourage you to look up the artist. He makes these trolls in various locations all over the world out of recycled wood, and gets a whole team of volunteers to help put them together. And his name totally escapes me, but they are fantastic. And at the Coastal Maine Botanic Garden, they have them tucked into various places, and they're just fun. You know, adding fun and whimsy to the garden is so important. I love visiting historical gardens, such as the Colonial Williamsburg Garden. Imagine these tools. Can you imagine digging your garden with wooden pitchfork? Oh my gosh, it just amazes me what they were able to accomplish back then. And this past weekend, I was at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, and I have to confess, even though I grew up in Boston, this was my first visit, and I just love the symmetry in that courtyard. If you haven't been there, it's just magnificent, especially in the middle of the winter. And then tapestries. I mean, I get I get wonderful ideas just by looking at art on the wall. So there's so many places to find inspiration beyond just taking this class. So again, immerse yourself in the art of growing food, and it's going to amaze you what you find. So let's start by getting to know your land. Do you know who was on your land? How far back can you go to learn about the land that you call your garden? You know, we buy these little pieces of property and we have a piece of paper that says this is our land, but you know, really the land doesn't really belong to us. We're sort of temporary people on this land. And this is Mount Equinox right behind my house. This is a 1 mile walk that I take almost every weeknight in the evening up around this pond. And I know in my area, we used to have Abenaki, Mohican, and Pennacook. And I can't say I've found any evidence of them, but I've certainly found old pottery shards and various things in my backyard. So, you know, I just love to close my eyes and picture what my land must have been 100, 200, 300 years ago. So getting to know your land is really important. And also noticing the eco zones on the land. I know many of you said I don't get much sun. So you're obviously noticing the sun, you know where south is, but also noticing where the wet areas are, where the dry areas are, because all of the land is going to be a little different in your property. And where does the wind come from? And where is it sunny? And where is it shady? And just noticing it, just sitting. I think we don't take enough time to just sit and notice these things. We kind of just want to stay busy and dig in. So I strongly believe putting a bench in your backyard and just sitting and talking to your land and getting to know it. And I really truly believe that there is a sweet spot. Every garden has a sweet spot, and you'll feel it, you'll know it. And this is my sweet spot. This is my wonderful old apple tree. And when I did my 5-year plan, this old apple tree looked like it was on its last legs, and it's still with me. I don't know if you can see, but the back side of it is all carved out, and its sapsucker has carved little holes in it. And I've had to do some trimming with it, but it gets such TLC from me. And I just love it so much that I think it's going to stay with me as long as I'm still here. And so I know this is my sweet spot, and this is where I put my bench, and this is where I sit in the evening with my glass of wine. And, you know, I just think it's really important to find those places that we resonate with, like as Mary talked about in her first passage, of just finding and connecting to the earth. So we're at our halfway point. I'm amazed that I could drop this in, and it really is our halfway point. So does anybody need to take a 5-minute break? Yes. All right. I can't see you because I am. Does anybody say yes? Do you need to take a break, or you want to keep going? You can raise your hand. Nobody's raising their hand. We can keep going if you want. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know you can take. Okay. So you know you can take a break anytime. How's that? My son, I have to say that I have 2 kids, and they're both teachers. And I asked my son, who's a professor, I said, so what's the most important thing I need to know? And he said, make sure you allow time for everybody to take a break. But I guess nobody needs it, which is great. Oh, look, time to do another breakout session. So you can take a break. Okay, we're going to try this one for a little bit longer this time, Emerson, okay? The questions I want you to think about is, where do you find inspiration? What's your biggest source of information? And what do you see or feel when you hold a vision for your garden? And what do others see when they enter your garden? And I really want you to think about this a little bit, write it down, and we're going to do, how's 10 minutes this time? And then that way, if you need to take a little break, you can run to the kitchen and grab a cracker or something, okay? And I'm going to visit your groups, and I will post that in the chat. See if I can do this. Oh, Thomas Dombo is the troll artist, says Jen B. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes. Great, great, great. Yeah, good. All right, so I'm going to drop the questions in. See if I can do this. Okay, we're getting better at this, aren't we? This is great. Okay, so where do you find inspiration? What do you see or feel when you hold a vision for your garden? What do others see when they enter your garden? All right.
Great. I'm going to make the rooms actually 12 minutes just to give you a couple minutes to be able to get in the room. And we'll see you back in a few. All right, rooms are opening now.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Emerson.
So who hasn't talked yet?
I think you still need to join your breakout room, Kathy.
Oh, I haven't joined? My mistake.
Not yet.
I thought I could see my room.
everyone. Okay. Well, here we are. How was that? Good? Great. I just joined one group and then got a tidbit of the tail end, but as a group, does anybody want to share the things that inspired you? Some ideas. I heard art therapy. I heard botanical gardens, the land itself, just resonating with it. Does anybody else have something to share? You have to unmute, I think, because our host muted you. If anybody wants to just go. Yeah. Anybody want to share?
We talked a lot about bringing flowers and plants that attract bees and things into the garden. That's been a goal of all of ours. When it's our vision for the garden is to be more nature friendly.
Ooh, I love that. Yes, I'm with you. That sounds good. That sounds good. So yeah, that's very important for the health of the garden and the planet. Have you noticed fewer? I mean, I just noticed fewer every year, fewer bees, fewer birds. It's just it's devastating. Yes, we have to do our part for sure. All right, so we keep moving on here. Again, this is the first time I've done a two-hour class, so I hope the pace is okay and I'm not rushing you, but I'm gonna go back to my screen here and keep going. So I thought I would share with you what I call my 5-year plan. And so I lived on this 10-acre farm from 1980 to 2003. And we had, 5 acres of gardens. We had a farm stand. We had farm animals, fruit trees, everything. It was a constant motion to keep everything going. It was way too much. But I loved it, but it was a lot of work. So when I left the farm in 2003, I bought a very tiny little house in the village of Manchester. I say tiny, it's an old vintage house, slate roof, nothing fancy. I actually thought I'd just be here for maybe 2 or 3 years as my turnaround house and then go back out in the world. I ended up gardening and I haven't left. It's been 20 years. But I thought at first I would set up my 5-year plan because that first winter, there was nothing out the windows, nothing. I mean, just a little raised bed. And I'm going to show you pictures later on. And I kind of thought, phew, I don't have to have a garden. What a relief. But, once you start gardening, you just want a garden. You just want to have something. And so I that first winter, I drew this little plan where the house was, where the driveway is, where there was already a garden shed there, and just kind of created this little landscape. And pay attention because this is what I'm going to ask you to do in your homework, is create your 5-year plan. And, this kind of helps put everything in perspective when you can feel like a bird and you fly up and you're looking down rather than out the window. So often we're looking straight ahead and we're looking at the view. I want you to be thinking about it from above and how the land will look from above. And so this is what my garden looked like. I can't do my math. This was 2018 because I had a drone take a picture of my house. And this is what my 5-year plan ended up looking like, I guess 18 years or 15 years into it or something. I'm now 20 years into it. And I kind of feel like I want to redo everything, but I'm probably not going to do that. But this is what having a vision can do. I mean, I didn't realize I'd done this. I just started with a little area. I started with this little area and put in the little stones. And then I put in this little garden here. And then year 3, I put in my kitchen garden. And then year 4, I worked on this backyard, which was a swamp. That's actually looks like a cat, but that's where the drone equipment box is. And this is me sitting on a bench. And everything, that's my old apple tree, and everything just started to go with my flower garden here. I just planted a little bit and a little bit. Well, I didn't have much money when I first started, and this was absolutely the best way to put in a garden. Just like every year I'd budget $1,000 or $2,000 and put it in. And then you look back on it and you go, wow, I did this. So that's why it's important to have a long-term plan and see how everything fits together. So you can see I started with the front door. This is how I would walk into the house. The ornamental flower beds I wanted here. Look how close my neighbor is right there. I don't have a lot of her property line is right there. And I knew I wanted where the kitchen garden was because this faces south. And this is where the kitchen is, so it's really not close to the kitchen garden, to the garden, but I can walk down here and through the steps and walk around here, and it's not too bad. And then I wanted little sitting areas. So again, these are just things that were important to me. I just sat down and visualized this is what I wanted, and lo and behold, here I am, Rip Van Winkle time. I'm still here. I don't think I'm leaving either. So this is really where we're going to get started on your participation is starting with the big picture and the small picture. The big picture is starting to draw the landscape, and you're welcome to start drawing it as I'm talking if you have your graph paper and everything next to you, and break it into smaller areas, and then find that spot for your kitchen garden. These templates are downloadable on the class folders. They're just a way to give you an idea. Most of us don't have a perfectly square yard like that, but it gives you an idea of how to set this up. You don't even have to measure it, but it's a good idea. But the most important thing I want you to do is know, well, this is pointing south, but I want you to know north, but I want you to know where south is. I want you to know where your directions are. I can't tell you how many times I go to people's house and I go to do a consult and I go, okay, so point south, and they have to get their phone out to see. I'm sure all of you as gardeners, you know where south is, and that's really important when you're designing this space. And then take it to the next level. What are the obstacles? How do you see your landscape from indoors and outdoors, but also from looking down on it? Where are your trees? Where are your neighbors' trees? Where are the low areas? Where's the sidewalk and the driveway? And notice that that's north and this is south, that this particular garage and driveway are in the south. You need to get rid of that and put your garden in right there. But these are just things that you may already know, but if you don't, you certainly will get to know when you start doing this plan. And then how do you walk through the landscape? If you were to hire a designer, and I know you're all taking this class because you don't want to spend the money on a designer, you want to do this yourself, which is great. And some of you are designers, and this is probably what you do for your clients. You know that you want to use the whole space. And again, this little yard, you're not going to put in rain gardens and edibles and natives and grassy areas, but I want you to dream. I want you to really get this big vision, and then you can edit it. So what do you want? What do you want for your yard? And then we're going to kind of fine tune that for what will really work. So this is a little bit of an experiment. I have a guided meditation, and I would typically just sit here and read it to you, but instead I'm going to play you a recording because I couldn't actually find my hard copy, but I think this will be good. I have a little music in the background. So you've got some visuals going. I am going to ask you to close your eyes and sit very quietly. You don't have to look at the screen. I'm not going to put any pictures up. And just tap into your mind's eye, this space here in the middle of our forehead, which is our mind's eye, to build a connection with your vision. And I just want you to sit in a chair with your feet on the ground, close your eyes, have your graph paper in front of you. And it takes about 7 minutes, and you're just going to listen and try and visualize to get in that mode. So let's see how this works. Hi, everyone. This is Ellen Ecker Ogden, garden designer and author of The Complete Kitchen Garden. In my books and in my kitchen garden design class, I share 6 steps to successful garden design, and I wrote this guided meditation to help you tap into your mind's eye, to unleash your creativity and think outside the box. I hope this helps you build a deeper connection with your food garden and your land. Start by setting out on a table graph paper, pencil with eraser, photos of your garden or gardens that you love, and then let's begin. Sit in a chair with your feet on the ground, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. Breathe deeply again and relax your shoulders. Allow your mind to travel to a place where you feel safe and comfortable. It might be under a tree or in your garden, your patio, or on a bench near a pond with running water, a spot you love to go when you just want to get quiet and where you can hear the birds sing. Picture colors you love to see. Notice your breath and observe it coming and going out. Imagine your plant growing in your garden, with the roots growing out of the base of your feet. With each breath, visualize these roots growing deeper into the earth. And picture a bright white light entering the crown of your head, passing through your body, down into your roots. Once you are feeling clear and centered, allow your thoughts to move to any memory of gardens you have loved, or the one you're designing right now. Fill yourself with comfortable feelings such as the fragrance of sweet basil, the soft touch of a peony blossom, the tart taste of a cherry tomato warmed from the sun, or the sound of your children playing nearby, pulling carrots out of the ground. Can you feel the delicious soil between your bare toes? Tap into whatever emerges from the land. Remember that you're developing a new relationship with your land and co-creating a garden with nature as your partner. The first step is connection and finding a way to manage the land so that you can have a beautiful, abundant garden. You are designing the garden with intelligence and respect, and your design will reflect this collaboration. What fills the eye fills the heart. Surround yourself with beauty. You want to make it as attractive as possible. But what does beauty mean to you? Picture the purpose, harvesting delicious food for you and your family, to bring you into a sanctuary space, to grow alongside your plants. You're making a garden that now includes the land. It is about co-creation and a partnership with the food that you grow and your healthy self. This garden design process is artistic, and you don't need special training to do it. It doesn't need to follow an accepted style or classic design. It's between you and the living earth beneath you. It's about creating a balanced ecosystem and establishing strong relationship with your land. Your new kitchen garden will be a place filled with love and feel alive with the energy and exuberance of nature. This is a place where you will slow down, be guided and supported, feel grounded and safe. What do you love about this garden in your mind's eye? Can you see that it brings you confidence and a sense of security? With your eyes still closed, lift up like a hawk, soar above and look down on your landscape. How does it feel to see your landscape from above? What do you see? Can you see where you're sitting, your house? Can you see how your land connects to your neighbors? Do you share trees or a stream that runs through both your yards? If this is a new garden, see if you can find the place where you want to put your garden. What is the shape? How big is it? Where's the entrance? If this is your current garden, can you see if there's sunshine or shade? Is it close to the house or far away on the edge? Now come back to the ground and relax. But keeping your eyes closed, walk to the place where you saw your garden from above in your mind's eye. See it from the ground and then walk the whole boundary of your yard to form a conscious relationship with your land. Tell the land what you are doing and what you see. Gently sing if you'd like to. Hold the intention of knowing that you are seeking the best place for your kitchen garden. Now open your eyes. If you can go outside, stand at the entrance of your garden, either the one you have now or your new site. Pick up 2 stones and strike them together to unseat the energy that has become embedded there. This unlocks your land and allows you to have a sense of belonging. Belonging means family or guardianship as opposed to ownership. We can never truly own the land. Step inside the space. Can you feel the sun? Can you hear the birds? Can you visualize the beds, the path, the gate you want to put at the entrance to your garden? Did you walk under an arbor to get inside? Do you feel relaxed and joyful? Now look at those paths. Are they made of soft grass or stone, bark mulch? Can you find a comfortable place to sit quietly and undisturbed? Landscape designer Mary Reynolds writes in her book, Garden Awakening, you may believe in Gaia, God, Buddha, Allah, or whomever. It matters little. As long as you are calling on a strong, pure energy source, simply ask the power you believe in to surround you with protection, provide a sense of being supported and protected. Now walk back to the house, your kitchen, or where your drawing pad and pencils are waiting for you. Sit down and start to draw. Your feet will bring you to where your heart is. How was that, everybody? You can give me feedback later. I'm curious. All right, time to wake up. Graph paper. God, I love graph paper. I love drawing squares and grids. But actually, I really think freestyle drawing is what we really need to be doing right now. Just kind of getting loose and just having fun. But I'm going to show you how I use graph paper. And I have to say, I'm not a professional. I just do this for fun. And I know we have professionals amongst us, so maybe they can share some tips and techniques. But I love graph paper. I love all different shapes and sizes. I get little pads of it because I use it as sketch pads and stuff. But the basic way to use graph paper is 1 square equals 1 foot. So if you're drawing out something, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, blah. And you can use a graph paper that looks like this or big graph paper that looks like this. There's no right or wrong. It just helps put things into perspective. But at this point, I don't think you really need to get too specific. I just want you to get creative. I just want you to have fun. I want you to doodle. Remember what doodling was? Remember when your 6th grade teacher would say, stop doodling in the margins? Just start doodling in the margins. The tools I have, I know these were listed. You probably said, what are stencils anyways? Well, these are stencils. You know, they help you draw circles. I'm not very good at drawing particularly consistent circles, so I use stencils. There are different ways to draw boxes and curves, and you just get these at Staples. You just go into Staples or any kind of, place like that, and they have these wonderful curved rulers that you can use for doing shapes. They have little compasses. This is a ruler I've had probably since 6th grade. Just just stock up on this stuff, and it doesn't cost very much, and it really just helps you draw some of the things you want to draw. You know, we don't come to this really with much training. We just do it because, you know, we want to give it a try. Point north. Everybody, I want you to point north. I can't see you. You can only see me, but point south. Obviously, if you know where north is, you know where south is, east and west. And if you don't know it, then you can look it up after class. But be sure you put a compass on your graph paper when you're starting this first assignment of big picture, small picture, and 5-year plan, because it's very important to keep that in mind. So I want you to begin to think about your small design. Just, you know, rough sketches. We're going to be doing more of this in the next class. But be thinking about the shapes and the sizes and what you want to grow and how it fits into the big picture. I always say do 3 designs. You know, you get a lot of us just will start with something square like this. But I'd like you to do something that's creative, something maybe with circles or some zigzaggy thing, you know, like that early Rosemary Veery of the box with the triangle, something completely different. I want you to be thinking outside the box. Even though gardens are essentially boxes, I want you to think beyond that, because that's really where the magic happens. And usually after people do 3 designs, 2 designs of one very practical and one a little bit more whimsical, that the 3rd design is the one you go, oh yeah, this is what I want. But you're not going to get it the first time. So I really encourage you to just play with those designs, and don't overthink it. Let it flow and have fun exploring. And again, we're going to be continuing to work on our designs over the next 5 weeks, so you don't have to get it right off the bat. But I hope that some of these pictures have at least inspired you to be thinking about your big picture and your small picture. I wanted to share with you in closing here what my yard looked like when I first moved here. It looked like this. Isn't it pretty? It had a huge rhubarb plant, which I still have. It had this little raised bed. It had this wonderful garden shed, which I didn't realize how wonderful it was until I really started developing my land, and it has been invaluable. And I'd love for you to design a garden shed into your design. I feel everybody needs a shed. People say they want greenhouses, but really a shed is so much more practical. So that's what this cute little yard looked like. And I decided to change it. And it was sloping. I know one of you mentioned terrace gardens. Sometimes you simply have to invest in, you know, a landscaper coming over and putting in some timber. I didn't do it myself. I put some money into it and some nice stone steps. And that is soil that they brought in, but I've ultimately used most of my own soil. And then laying out the garden. And we're going to be getting to this in class 4 and 5, taking your paper design to the landscape. And so I drew it in. And I show you this picture because remember I mentioned that bench? You got to have a bench in your garden. The number one thing I want you all to do is design a bench, preferably 2 benches in your garden. And in order to have a bench, you need to make the paths 4 feet wide to fit that bench. And again, we'll cover that in the next class. But I can't tell you how many gardens I go to and they don't have a bench. Like, why not? It's not like you're going to sit around all day, but to have a bench to be able to sit and relax or throw your coat on or keep your phone on or something, absolutely essential. And notice my little tree that I use as my focal point. And this is what I call the walkthrough in the garden. So after I laid out the paths, I kind of more or less, so you can see how much it's changed. The little garden shed is still there, but the rhubarb plant is being moved. And then this is what my garden started to look like a couple years later. I planted some arborvitae, and you know, it's coming together. It's not quite the way I'd like it to be, but it's still coming together a little bit more each time. And then this is what it looked like a few years later, that little tree in the center. and the focal point, and it has this wonderful sort of secret garden entrance into the path. So, these are just ideas. We've just covered a lot. I think I have 75 slides here for you. And I'd love some feedback if you think that's too much, but I think it's just enough. So we covered big picture, small picture, and I want you to be thinking of the long-term vision of your landscape and hold that vision, the history, the past, and the present. And that's an optional assignment. Draw the big picture and the small picture schematic. And again, that's optional, but I highly recommend it. But really what I require for this class is to draw out your 5-year plan and how you see everything coming together, because it'll be really fun if you do that and then you look back on it in 5 or 20 years and it's all your dreams have come true. So remember that during these 5 weeks, I want you to think about your kitchen garden all the time. Just train your mind to think about it and immerse yourself in the process. Keep a sketchbook for your ideas. A sketchbook is only for yourself. You don't have to show it to anybody, but a sketchbook is really, really important. I can't keep a garden journal for the life of me. Sometimes I start it and I start recording the weather or what's blooming, but really it's my sketchbook that keeps me going. So invest in just something that can inspire you, and read and look at magazines, listen to podcasts, attend garden classes and conferences. I can make a list of these if you want. I know there's a wonderful garden series at the Berkshire Botanic Garden that I'm going to be, actually Garden Conservancy has some wonderful videos, and the Berkshire Botanic Garden has some wonderful things coming up. And of course, Longwood has a ton of great classes. So just keep going and ask questions. I'm here for you during this 5 weeks. You can ask me anything. I will check the message board every day. I think you have my personal email as well if you want one-on-one. My goal is to actually get to know each one of you. We actually have 2 classes. I don't know if you know that, but there's a Tuesday night, which is the original one. And we had so many people on the waiting list that we added another class to Wednesday. So between the 2 classes, there's almost 60 of you, which I'm just thrilled about. But I really want to get to know each one of you, and that may take staying after class and talking during this next 30 minutes that we have, or one-on-one time, because I'm really here to make sure that your time here is a success and that your garden is successful. A lot of talking here, but I hope this is helpful. So just, again, our task is to take this earth so deeply and wholly into ourselves that it will resurrect with our being. Oh, every time I read that, it just gives me chills. And of course, this is beautiful, beautiful Longwood Gardens. So this is the end of lesson 1, and I want to say thank you. Thank you very much. And food is really beautiful. I mean, I'm really excited about what you have ahead of you, growing your garden, designing your garden, eating from your garden. I mean, it's going to be a great year for you. So I'm really excited to share this time. So this is our 30-minute work session. We're going to ask questions, work on designs together, share your thoughts about designs, share things that maybe I didn't cover in this class. So thank you.
Can I ask you a straight question? What is the assignment for this week?
Oh, let me look at my notes. You can do anything you want, really, but I think the assignment that I posted, which is hold the vision for your landscape, get to know the history, past, present, and future, or past and present and possibly future. Draw out your big picture, and there are templates for doing that. So getting a big piece of graph paper and just drawing, and we can do that during this 30 minutes if you want to use this as our drawing time. Draw where your house is, mark it with south and north first, and then where your house is, where your driveway is, where the trees are, where the shade is, you know, the obstacles, and then how you want to flow. Get your dream list going of what you want to do in that. Do you want a sitting area? Do you want a play area? Do you want a garden shed? You know, where do you want your kitchen garden? If you could put it anywhere, you know, just really thinking of it as a big whole. But your big project is coming up with a 5-year plan, and that's sort of all those things merged together.
Where
Yeah,
would you
I
like us
couldn't find your assignment. That's why I did ask to.
sorry.
Plan? What's that? Sorry.
Where would you like us to submit that? Is that just coming to class and saying it, or?
I think, and again, I think that's a great question. Emerson can help me with this. I think that's what you post on the assignment page, right? And that would take, if you either
Yeah,
have a,
so it looks like from the student view, it looks like only the final project is currently populated in the assignments tab. So I'm actually going to reach out to our online learning team just to double check to see maybe
Okay,
they.
that's how I saw it. Just the
Yeah,
one
me
thing.
too. I think maybe we just need to open those up for you to see it. So I'll take care of that. And you should be able to see where to upload those.
yeah, because
Ellen,
there was
Ellen,
some,
it looks like it's in the discussions. Under discussions,
okay.
I see the 5-year plan where you submitted. It says it's due on Monday, January 22nd. Is that right? 5-year plan, your long-term vision for your.
I guess so, but it should go under the yeah, I think we have to look at that with Vanessa, right? And just
So
make sure,
yeah, I can send Vanessa an email and we'll.
just so it's
get it
clear
figured
where
out.
I can see it. Yeah, because somewhere Vanessa posted there's something, oh, I know, because I didn't know this is a certificate program, everybody, but I know some of you are getting like certificates, so I'm gonna do my best to be a good teacher. But there's like every submission has points, and then the final one has more points. It's okay, I'm not gonna be a mean teacher, you'll figure it out, but there's somewhere in that shows you what's due and where it goes. To those of you who are going for certificates.
And can I ask another question? How do you submit a graph drawing?
Oh, that's a good question. So do you have a scanner on your computer? I mean, on your printer?
Printer? I possibly.
Okay.
I guess I haven't used it yet, but yeah.
Do what you can. I mean, some people can just, you can take a picture of it. But on my printer, I have an option to scan things, and that's how I do a lot of my work.
Okay. I'll figure that out then. That's how you do it. You scan it.
That's a good question. Yeah, I would scan it because I think that's going to be the cleanest thing. Really what works for you, because you know, again, I just want you to be creative and enjoy the process, and I don't want you to get bogged down by the technology. Like, who needs that, right? We spend enough time on our computers.
I found the easiest way is to take a picture and then log into Longwood on your phone that you took the picture on, and then you can post it that way from your phone into the assignment. Especially if you're taking other classes. Some of the other classes are much bigger papers that you have to. It's too big for my scanner. This one might not be, but
okay. Yeah, do your best, but I'll practice myself. I'll do some scanning and
okay, that's a good cell phone sounds easy.
I have a question for you, Ellen.
Yes.
Who's
talking? Hi.
This is Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. This question might be a little premature, but because my kitchen garden is already fairly established, I just want to redesign it and make it a little more efficient.
Great.
And then I also want to add spots in some of my other gardens that get more sun in order to put things in there that don't do well in my herb garden because it gets too much shade. So it's actually a two-part question. You mentioned rotating your crops. So if you have the 4 square, rotating them around, but many of my herbs are perennial. So, you know, my sage gets bigger every year. My, you know, other things come back every year. Do you recommend digging them up and transplanting them? Because that would affect my design.
No, keep your herbs. If they're doing well, keep them where they are. I work around my herbs. I keep them in the garden and I work around them. So there's a difference between, okay, so we will get into this a little bit more in the next class, or in one of the classes. But the beautiful thing about a kitchen garden is it's mostly annuals, and you're dealing with a blank canvas every year. Every year, you know, you just strip it at the end, and then you get to have this whole new space, which is what I find so exciting about growing food. I don't have to deal with the stuff that I planted that I don't really want anymore or that got too big. But there are perennial edibles that are in my garden. Like there's asparagus and there's rhubarb, and you know, there's certain things that come up every year, and you just have to sort of work around them. But I wouldn't, if they're doing well, I wouldn't, and you're happy with where they are, just work with them. But that's where I think doing the big picture is going to help you, because those are what your obstacles are. They're there, and do you like the way they look, or do you want to move them around? And so again, it's trying to see a fresh perspective on what you have, because I imagine most of you already have a garden and you already have your landscape, but this is a way of just being able to just sort of nudge it over here and see if you can see it a slightly different way.
Okay. And then the second part of that question is, in one of the other areas that gets more sun, that I want to incorporate some vegetables. And I've had vegetables out there in the past and they've done well, but now they don't do well anymore. And I think it's because I have some ground cover that is taking over the soil and taking over that space. So I thought of putting some raised beds there so I wouldn't have to compete with the ground cover. Can you share your perspective on raised beds? Because it sounds like you have a firm opinion on those.
Oh, you're gonna have to wait till the next class.
Okay. All right.
I think everybody has to, I mean, honestly, I think sometimes it depends on your landscape and what you want to do. It sounds perfectly legit if you're having trouble with invasive plants and you want to set them up, and they're better for rabbit control and other things. So there's plenty of reasons for it. From a design perspective, I think sometimes they don't look like they fit into the landscape very well. And I'll just share, you know, sometimes they're 4 feet long and 4 feet wide and 6 feet long, and people stack them up like this, and it looks a little bit like a cemetery garden. Like there's no creativity to that at all. The other problem I have with raised beds is that oftentimes you're not working with the soil that you have. So you bring in soil from someplace else. You don't really know where that soil's come from. It's going to have to be soil tested and all that sort of stuff. It could be dry and grainy. I have friends who have beautiful raised bed gardens, but they do have to keep putting new soil in every year. I just prefer the standard way because I work with my soil. I put in cover crops. I use compost. I'm constantly working with what I have. But yeah, I got rabbit problems like everybody else. There's no question about it. So
okay.
I don't know. It's like 50-50. It's just, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but if it fits your design and your aesthetics, go for it. I just don't happen to like the way it looks in a landscape usually.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So Kelly, you have your hand raised. Hi. Nice to meet
you. Nice to meet you. I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about the big picture, small picture aspect, because I'm not sure I included on that as well.
How we're going to do it? How we do it?
Yeah.
Did you download the printouts on the page? Maybe if you go to that, you can see. Basically, all it is just taking a piece of paper. You can use a plain blank white piece of paper. You can use graph paper, but if you use graph paper, kind of more or less measure out the shape of your land. Mark on there which direction is south, so you know where that is, and then draw in your house. It's kind of like a little second, you know, just like take yourself back to child. Draw in your house and your driveway and where you like to sit and where that big apple tree is in the background, and you know, just kind of the parts and pieces of your yard, because you know what? I think we walk through our yard all the time and we don't see things. I think you're going to see, oh my God, I didn't realize that shrub was right there. You know, I think it's going to open your eyes to what's there. And then what the obstacles are with your neighbors. Like I've got a neighbor right here and a neighbor right there. My neighbor has trees on her property that shade my garden, and it's so annoying. I want to get out there in the middle of the night and cut them down. But of course she'd noticed that. But even though it's not on your property, you'll notice that her shade trees will affect your garden. So these are all things that just to get an idea of the lay of the land. Because, you know, this whole class was really talking about connecting to the land and stuff. And this is just a way to just draw that piece of paper. And then if you want to, the small picture is then draw in where your garden, your smaller garden, your kitchen garden is going to go. And if you want to take that to the next step, although that's really the assignment for next class, if you want to take that to the next step, you can start drawing in some shapes and sizes and where the entrance is and where the exit is. Make sure you always have like 2 ways to get in and out, sort of like a rabbit hole. You know, you want to make sure you have flow, so to speak. So does that make more sense at all? Is that making any sense?
It does. No,
Okay.
it does. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Is everybody clear on that? I mean, it's just getting that vision going. Hey, so what did you think of that visualization? Did that help any of you get sort of started? Is that
I liked it.
good? Good. So,
So do you have a fence around your garden in addition to the arborvitaes?
do I? No, but I need one.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. Wow, I know. I never had any problems until this year, and now I'm like, oh boy.
They're so hungry.
You know, I mean, I find with the rabbits in my yard is they just take everything down for the first few weeks, and then there's plenty of other stuff for them to eat, and they're fine, and I don't have a problem with them. But I know they can be a problem. I have a groundhog that lives under my front porch, if you can believe it. I've just discovered it. It's like, oh, always something. But you know, honestly, I'm one of those who just kind of feels like we all got to live together. You know, rewilding our gardens, we bringing in this stuff. It's better to have it than not to have it, really. You know, so I know most people don't agree with me, but that's how I feel. I'm kind of a nature lover.
Did you notice that they kind of changed the labels on plants, and it says now they say not preferred by deer as opposed to deer resistant?
Really?
Yeah, I noticed that this year, and every time I see it, I crack up.
Not
because
preferred.
nothing really is deer resistant.
Oh,
not preferred by deer.
Interesting. So, I mean, this is our 30 minutes. You can get your sketch pad out and start drawing if you want to, because I know once you get off, you're going to go get busy. You're going to go like, you know, get dinner started or take care of other things you need to do. So I really did build this in. You can sign off and say goodbye, or you can sit down and get your homework done now. Whatever you want to do. I'm here. I'm just going to hang out.
Ellen, I have a question. For designing for a slope, is there like anything else you can do other than terracing? Is like terracing like the go-to, or is there some other way of dealing with a slope? Like as I'm thinking about like the 5-year plan, I want to like I have a slope that kind of comes like this way, and if this is the house, it slopes like this, and then it also slopes down. So it's like these 2 slopes that I'm like dealing with. And like I've been trying to just work with the shape of the land, but it's also not great soil. So like the runoff is bad when we get really torrential storms. And so I'm trying to figure out like, is creating those terrace levels the best option, or is there something else? And I've been doing like research online, and I'm not finding any other ideas.
Keep researching, I would say. My experience is that terrace gardens can be absolutely beautiful. And I have an example in one of my, I'll post it on I'll make a note to myself to post it on thing. You know, if you look throughout so many, like look through Italy. Italy has gorgeous terrace gardens, and they build them up with stones, and you can walk through them, and that gives you height and drama. I think working with the terraced could be very exciting. And it just is going to take time, and you know, deciding if you want to don't use railroad beds. You know how people used to use railroad bed ties? Don't use that because they've got creosote and they probably aren't available anymore, but people used to make gardens out of those. I can't believe it. But you know, figure out what you want to do to build your terraces. But I think for the most part, yeah, things like to have a certain stability in the soil, but you don't have to do that. But I would highly recommend trying to figure out a solution to it. Because yeah, with the flooding that we're having and you know, the more weather issues we have, you could easily lose your garden. I lost my garden to Hurricane Irene. We had water that came down off the mountain and just whooshed, it just went whoosh. You probably, in one of the slides, I'm not sure if you noticed, but you know, I had bark mulch to begin with, gone, completely gone. So then I replaced it with stone, little gravel stone. So now I have a river that runs through my garden instead. You know, so we're always adapting, but if you're putting a lot of time and effort into your garden, I don't know. I just think making that initial investment, if you're planning to be there, would be really good. So I'll see if I can find some pictures for you, but look up Italian gardens, look at, you know, these countries that have terrace gardens. There's some beautiful, beautiful terraced gardens, and it could be stunning.
Can I share, because I have a slope problem too. We talked about that. We're in the same breakup. I just want to share a picture that I had found as a little inspiration.
Okay.
Is that allowed?
Oh yeah, how do you do it? I don't know how you put it in the chat. Can you put it in the chat?
Oh, let me let me
or
see.
in the
It's not gonna let me share my screen. Let's see.
Oh yeah, everybody look at the chat, by the way, because somebody wrote in here, Kelly wrote, last year I learned that slugs like cilantro. I hadn't ever had a problem until I planted cilantro. That's interesting.
I was literally out every night with a flashlight pulling them off of the cilantro seedlings.
Oh, how awful.
Wow. But you're right.
Yeah.
Like after they got bigger, it was less of a problem, but it was trying to get them bigger.
I just updated the screen share option, so you should be able to share your screen.
Oh, thank you. Because I was trying to do it some other way. Perfect. Okay, this is an inspiration because I've got a pretty good steep. Can you see this?
That's gorgeous.
Yeah. So it's got I wanted a fence to try to help keep out the rabbits and stuff, but I like how it's not just those straight line terraces down. It's got a little bit of an interest where it zigs and zags down through the slope. But it's this is a raised bed. I don't know how I would do a slope garden without some raised beds.
Yeah. Is this your garden?
No, this is a picture of one of my inspirations for my garden.
Oh, interesting.
Thanks for sharing. That's helpful to see that.
Yeah. God, I'm gonna go in and see if I can find the
do you want to do it's actually, are we still recording? Should you see it, or do you want to do like a screenshot, Brittany, if you want to see that?
Oh, sorry, I just took a screenshot. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yep. All right,
Perfect.
I'm gonna stop sharing.
I'll post another one that I have that's made out of stone. That's a French garden and it's very beautiful. Yeah, that garden looks kind of overbuilt a little bit. You know, it looks like, boy, that's a pretty expensive garden with all that timber and one. So, you know, again, that 5-year plan, I don't know, you sink your budget into that pretty quickly, I think, but it's nice. But again, before you build a fence, I don't know where you are, Brittany, if you have trouble with deer, if you have.
Yeah, we back onto the woods. So we definitely have deer. And yeah, a mixed, like I have one area that's fenced, like a small area that's fenced, but like we can't really install fencing on the spot where I'm thinking of terracing because it's an outlot and it borders the woods. So like it isn't really practical to do fencing there. And so, yeah, I've relied on sprays mostly and then like planting plants around the edibles that the deer don't like. So trying that kind of dual tactics of like cayenne pepper spray and they don't like black-eyed Susans and they don't seem to like Tithonia. So I try and kind of surround the edibles with those things as my natural fencing, but
Yeah,
sometimes it works.
well, I think that's nice. And we'll talk more about fencing and beds in the next class because what you really want to avoid is what I call the batting cage, you know, the thing where you have to walk in, because really fences are a picture frame around your garden. They don't necessarily have to be like these cages that enclose it. I think that picture, even though it's nice, to me it's too much fence too close by. You know, you want something maybe that will work, but will also be aesthetic. And that's the point of this class, is to design something. So I love the idea that you're using plants to kind of soften that a little bit. Looking at that, I had a gal in my class. She created a fence. God, I hope I can get a picture of it. It went out like that in some way. And then she uses it as a clothesline too, which I thought was so funny. Anyways, go for what it's worth. Yeah, fences, be creative with fences. You know, you just want something pretty. So it's not always just making you feel like, oh, going to the garden. You know, it's like, I don't know. I can't tell you how many gardens I visited, and they do this. People say, we're gonna have this fence. We gotta keep these deer out. And I don't know, who's more important? What's more important? It's just one of those questions. And somebody told me idea about how they keep away deer, and I forgot, but I'm going to have to remember it by next class, because it's clearly a problem for everybody.
You can do sound. I've heard that.
Sound.
Well, what it is it's really expensive, but a friend of mine looked into it, where they actually they guarantee the deer will not cross it, because they project sound around like an invisible fence, but it's made with sound, and deers don't like the sound. So they don't come in.
You can hear it though. That sound that it projects.
Yeah.
Had a few of those in our yard, and like it's at a frequency that like kids can hear, and like
and
it actually like
crazy
stomach upset. At least they're the kids that like would walk by our yard when it was on. Oh my God, my stomach really hurts, and every time they walk our yard,
that's terrible. So it probably hurts you, and you don't even know it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I didn't hear it, and I turned it off, and like so it's a trail like by our house, and so we had them like near the trail, and so like they didn't even know that I was you know, in the backyard, because there was like a part of the fence. I'd like hear these kids like saying like, oh my God, like, because the elementary school's at the top of the hill, and so they'd be like, oh my God, my stomach hurts. So I turned them off, and they were like instantly like relieved like the next few days, like when I was out in the yard and hearing them kind of going back up and down the trail. So just throw that out there. That's anecdotal, but I don't know if that's like a universal experience, but for some people it bothers them.
Oh, it just creeps me out, doesn't it? Oh, thought of it. Poor things, what we're doing to our environment. Well, you know, I mean, deer don't like, I've known people who just put like fishing line on. You don't see fishing line, but they don't like things that they can't see, and they hit that and they won't go in. But, you know, again, I'm not a fence expert, but there are options to fences. And, you know, some people have these automatic sprinklers that go on, or lights or something, but I'm not getting into it because I just do the design part. But I hear all kinds of things. All right, so how you doing? Any other questions? Do you want to draw? Do you want to get your graph paper out? Does anybody have any questions about basic drawing and graph paper and tools and how to do that part of it? No? You're all masters at this? Great. No, you're shaking your head.
If I'm going to put my garden in the backyard or the side yard, do I need to draw the front yard? Because I'm just drawing my front yard now. I'm like, I'm not going to put the garden there.
I want you to do the whole
thing.
Whole thing.
All in one page.
Well, I don't know how big your yard is, so I don't know. I just want you to have fun doodling. You know, it's like, have any of you taken a writing class? You know, basically, this is kind of just like tapping in. We're so used to doing the keyboard thing. This is going to actually force you to take a pencil and a piece of paper and an eraser and just draw. And it's going to be so wonderful. You're going to really enjoy getting into that immersive, creative space. And don't worry what it looks like, but yeah, get a ruler out. I don't have a ruler right here. You're going to love it. It's going to be fun. You're going to not be able to stop drawing once you start doing it. Oh, you know, the other thing I didn't talk about is tracing paper. So once you have your design, and let's say you make a mistake, or let's say you have it exactly the way you want, you're going to want to put a piece of tracing, instead of having to redraw it or put it in the scanner or something, you can put a piece of tracing paper over it and then play with that design with the tracing paper. And maybe I'll talk about that more in the next class, because I know we've lost some people now. But if you understand what I mean, once you have the outline, then you don't have to keep redrawing it. You can just do overlays of it. Is that making any sense? This is where I need to get my, I should have practiced this with Emerson. I have a light that then has my phone, and I'll show you, I'll practice that so I can do that in the next class to show you how I do a drawing with then the overlay of the tracing paper. Emerson, you're gonna have to remind me to do that.
Can I ask you a quick question? What kind of pencil works the best?
I'm looking around for my pencils. Just a number 2 with a good eraser on the end works pretty darn well.
That's it.
Yeah. Nothing fancy.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I have some graphite and stuff. Just get a good sharpener and go.
Okay. I didn't know if it was a certain mechanical pencil you use rather than, you know.
You know how hard it is. You can't get those. Remember when we were all in school and you'd have those pencil grinders, you know, and you stick the pencil in and you can't get those anymore.
Yeah, and all the other ones break.
Yeah, exactly. They do, don't they? I know.
Yeah.
Oh. I know some of you are too young. You probably don't remember those, but we always had one in our school. When you go into school, you had to make sure all your pencils were nice and sharp.
Yeah.
Ellen, I have a question. Can you hear me? This is Lindsay.
Yes, hi, Lindsay.
Hi. Earlier when you stated the 4 square grid parterre gardens, the center was a mulberry tree. Is that what you said earlier? Was mulberry trees in the center?
I thought it was a mulberry tree. I don't really know that for sure, but I did say I think it's a mulberry tree. Is it?
Okay. Because I didn't know if there was any significance behind that, because they grow in my yard like weeds, and I typically pull them because they grow under my foundation, around my AC unit, and they become weedy. But I didn't know if there was a significance to them.
I don't know. I don't know if it really is a mulberry tree or not. Maybe I just was making that up because I've never seen a mulberry tree, because in the Vermont, we don't have them. But I like what you asked about the focal point, which we're going to talk about. So when we do our designs, focal points are really important. And then the middle of my garden, I showed you my little tree, and that was actually a viburnum. The very first one I put in was viburnum. And then it died on me. So then I had to pull it all out after, you know, been there for a while. It got some disease. And then I put in an ornamental lilac tree, which I don't really like. I want to get rid of it and put something else in. So remember that whatever you put in, you can always change it up a little bit. I once had, actually, being a kitchen garden, I had a dwarf fruit tree in my old garden, but the problem is the dwarf fruit trees only grow about, I'm only 5 feet tall. I may look taller in this picture, but I'm really only 5 feet tall. And so the branches, when you walk by them, would just stick me in the eye, and they were horrible, and I had to get rid of that. So, you know, I don't know. I don't have any perfect solutions about what to put in the center of the garden, but you can always change it if it doesn't work for you.
Okay. Do you recommend a fast growing fruit tree? Because I really want to plant some orchard trees. I'm just hesitant because my neighborhood, I'm in a neighborhood, unfortunately, so there's rules, and they spray for mosquitoes every summer. And I'm afraid if I plant a certain type of fruit tree, the mosquito spray will kill it. And I was just curious, do you recommend a hardy fruit tree that grows fast?
Well, let's step back to the mosquito spray. I don't think a mosquito spray will kill it. I just think it will maybe leave a residue on it that you may not want. But
right.
I don't think it's going to kill it. But you can find out what the chemical is and so on. It depends on what you want to grow for a fruit tree. You know what they say about, I just read this quote recently. What they say about fruit trees is you should have planted it 5 years ago. Because it takes that long. I just planted peach trees like a couple of years ago. They're not very long lived, but I think you just want to choose what you just try. If you want a whole bunch of trees, just get a whole bunch of trees and try them. That's not a very good answer, is it?
No, you're fine. My grandfather, actually my great grandfather, he planted peach trees and pear trees in the 80s. And to this day, they are still producing fruit.
Oh, fantastic.
Wow.
And he's never pruned them. He just had a lot that was not developable. It would not perk. So he's like, what am I going to do with this vacant lot? So he planted an orchard, and he literally planted, I don't know, maybe 40 to 50 peach and pear trees. Never sprayed them with fungicide, never pruned them. And to this day, they still produce fruit. Yep.
That is unheard of. That is so amazing.
Yeah, I know. I love it.
So yeah, and so think of how you want. I mean, I would love to have a pear tree, honestly. I planted peach trees because I think they're fairly fast, but they're not long lived. But the shape of every tree is going to be a little different too. So I don't know, just have fun with them. Plant as much as you can.
Yeah.
Nut trees are good. Yeah, make it some nice old heirloom variety.
Mm-hmm.
We have too many honey crisps in this world.
Yeah.
It has to be small though, so it doesn't shade certain parts of your garden though, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking the orchard I would put in a separate area of the yard because I only have 1/3 of an acre. I don't have a lot of land to work with. But does anybody recommend any evergreen herbs that are also ornamental that are beautiful in the wintertime?
Where are you? What's your climate?
I'm Southern Maryland. I'm zone 7B8.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, but it goes from like 0 degrees to 100 degrees. So it the weather here just fluctuates every day. You never know what you're going to get. So it's very hard on plants here. I don't know whatever is going to thrive. You know, one year something thrives, and next year it doesn't because we get more rain or more snow or vice versa.
Do you have a cold frame?
I do.
I have had the best luck this year with parsley. So I didn't pull my parsley out of my cold frame at the end of the growing season. I just didn't have time and left it in there. And it is like, it's still producing. Like right now it's like snowed and it's freezing, and the cold frame has kept it warm enough and it's in a sunny spot. So I've got like these full parsley plants in there. So I don't, maybe give that a try.
Yeah, I just love evergreen. I love plants that have 4-season interest because I just want to maximize the garden space as much as possible because I don't have much to work with. Like I love the Christmas fern. It's just, I love the texture it provides for the garden. I think it's beautiful to look at. So I love parsley. Thank you.
Sure.
Jen said,
I'm sorry. Just going to say lavender is a good one.
Sorry.
What is I'm trying to think. There's a great lavender that mostly stays.
I don't know. I think mine is English lavender. I'm not sure, but I have.
This is like it has a name like Spectacular or something.
I don't know.
It's a relatively new cultivar. I can usually keep that all year round. And Jen said rosemary. My rosemary goes in like 5-year stages. Just when it's like big and magnificent and I'm blown away, then we'll have a sub-zero winter and it dies and I'll start again. But if you're in Maryland, I'm in Pennsylvania, I'm 7A. You might be just warm enough that you're not going to get, you're not going to have that winter every 5 years that it's -3.
Okay.
And rosemary can be very, very, very beautiful. There are a lot of herbs. A lot of my herbs will come back.
Yes.
Like lovage and mint and thyme and all of those will come back every year, but not necessarily stay evergreen.
Right. And Ellen, I loved the arborvitaes around your garden. Do you recommend another evergreen that would be nice for framing in a garden space that doesn't get too tall and blocks sun?
Boxwood.
Boxwood. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, there's some good messages in the chat, so you should check. Jen B says, apparently deer don't like wind chimes. Has anyone tried that? I have one on my porch, and so far they haven't eaten anything near my house.
Wow.
That's a good idea. Inkberry, Kelly says, dirt cheap lavender I bought at an annual stand is still thriving. Inkberry grows well. Sorrel for an evergreen edible interest. Yeah, lots of good conversations here. Thank you. Did you see Jen B also? Jen B, you're really helpful. You said Thomas Dombo is the troll artist, so you got to look at that. But I want to say about parsley. I adore parsley, and parsley is a great thing to put around in the kitchen gardening framework, put a framework around it and stuff. It's a biennial though, so it's not going to last forever. It's probably going to last you could last 2 years. I mean, if you're lucky, it might last you more, but it develops a root and then suddenly it's not good anymore. So keep a succession of it going.
Even if you let it go to seed?
If you can. I don't know. I mean, in Vermont, I have to replace it every year to every 2 years or so.
Phenomenal is the name of that lavender that I can generally keep, like it's generally silver year, you know.
That's good. That's very good advice. All right, everybody. It's great to meet you. I'm so happy that you stayed on and we've had this great discussion. I even saw Kathy doing a drawing. You're doing great at that. So yay, I love your enthusiasm. I love your involvement. And I really look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Oh, good. Good. You're doing it too. Excellent. Good work, everybody.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.